What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today, with the launch of the brand new Destiny 2 Season of the Witch, we got 3 new Strand Aspects, one for each different class. So in this video, we're going to be showcasing all of those new aspects, discussing exactly how they work, providing a bunch of synergies and places to start your builds, as well as discussing if they're any good. And so, let's get started. Now, first of all, how do you actually acquire these new aspects? Well, you want to head to Neomuna and talk to Nimbus. From there, you're going to gain a quest where you have to go and do the Veil Containment mission. You really just load into it, interact with one screen, as you can see, and you're done. At that point, you can head back to the Puka Pond on Neomuna, and as you can see, you can go to the aspects section and purchase your new aspect. Importantly, it will be free. It won't cost the Strand Bucks resource, so don't worry about that. Doing this once also unlocks it for your entire account, so on subsequent characters you just need to go right to the Puka Pond and it'll be right there available for purchase. So let's get started here with the Titan's new aspect, Banner of War. It's got 2 fragment slots, and it says, defeat a target with a melee attack, finisher, or sword to raise a banner of war that pulses with energy, periodically healing nearby allies, and increasing melee and sword damage. Targets defeated by you and nearby allies charge the banner, increasing the speed of its pulses. So here's how all of that actually works in-game. You get that initial sword kill, for example, and as you can see, you will have a visible circle around your character indicating where allies need to stand to get the benefits, and also if you're in third person, you can see an actual physical banner jutting out of your character, and you will also see the Banner of War buff in the bottom corner of your screen initially for 15 seconds. At this point, getting kills will fuel that buff. However, very importantly, you can actually get kills of any sort. You only need the sword, melee, or finisher to start the initial Banner of War buff. At this point, getting kills with weapons, tangles, whatever will do one of 2 things. First of all, kills will increase the amount of time you have for the buff by a few seconds, and they will also make the buff go from ×1 to eventually ×2, ×3, and it will cap out at ×4. When you're at ×4, you will actually see like the blinking pulsing effect appear much more often than at ×1, and each time you see that blinking effect, you will get a little bit of health. And I mean, I say a little bit, but considering how often these pulses happen at ×3 and ×4, and considering you can combine it with another Titan aspect like Into the Fray, where destroying tangles will give you Woven Mail, the damage resistance of Woven Mail combined with the healing of Banner of War is actually pretty significant, and I found it pretty hard to die when you have that combo. So at this point, you can kind of take Banner of War in 2 different directions. You can go the activate and then use other stuff method, where you simply get 1 melee kill and then rely on your weapons or whatever else your build may be doing to just keep Banner of War up, or do what you can see me do in the background gameplay, go full sword and melee build. I'm using stuff like the Monte Carlo to consistently get my melee back, as well as the Syntheseps to provide lunge distance and more melee benefits. And remember, guys, your super, the Berserker super, is going to count as melees. So you can simply cast your super and the first melee kill you get with it will trigger Banner of War, and all of your subsequent melee kills will ramp it up through the roof. I unironically ended up crutching on it during Altars of Sorrow Tier 3. There's just so many enemies around, and you've got the attrition modifier that messes with your healing. Banner of War was crutch to fight against that. So I actually really did enjoy this. I'm not sure how good it's going to be on end game content. Like, am I going to use this day 1 in the raid? Like, maybe not, but certainly for like low level content for the seasonal activities where there's so many enemies around and you can throw together a very effective melee build, it's actually quite good. Now, moving on from there, guys, to the Warlock. The new aspect here is called Weave Walk. You press your airborne dodge to enter a weave, gaining damage resistance from combatants and players. Reactivate your air dodge or cast your rift to exit the weave. While in the weave, you generate perched threadlings over time. So the first thing to note is that Weave Walk only has one fragment slot, whereas the other aspects both have two, so keep that in mind. But here's how this actually works in game. First of all, I can't believe it doesn't mention this at all, but it takes up your melee to enter into Weave Walk. So as you can see, I jump in the air, I activate that dodge, I essentially become invisible. That's how the enemies are going to interact with you. As you can see, they don't damage me at all. Now, I can still technically take damage, however, that damage is significantly reduced. So if I'm standing in fire or there's a shot from an enemy that's already coming in before I enter into Weave Walk, again, I can take that damage, but this is essentially like invisibility for the Warlocks on your Strand subclass. Now, again, as I'm in that Weave Walk state, you can see those threadlings spawn around me. And importantly, guys, because it will take up your melee energy to Weave Walk and you have 3 melees, if you actually wait until all 3 of your needle strike melees or whatever they're called are ready, well, here's the result. You're gonna see how long you can actually Weave Walk for, and it's a pretty significant amount of time. So you can travel across a pretty vast distance, get into a good spot, whatever you want to do during this time frame. Importantly, we did test whether or not you could revive while Weave Walking, and as you can see, you cannot. So keep that in mind. You will need to Weave Walk and then come out of it to interact with objects, revive, etc. Now, overall, Weave Walk has insane potential. Like the things you're hypothetically able to do by essentially going invisible and also having insane damage resistance at the same time, you can save yourself when you are absolutely supposed to die. However, the fact that this takes up your melee is the big factor holding it back. Now, I did actually combine this with the Monte Carlo yet again, and with that, it was actually insane. You're getting back your melee so much because of the Monte Carlo, you're actually able to use Weave Walk basically as a threadling generator, and therefore you could potentially slot this aspect into a more threadlings focused build, which is usually what the Strand Warlock is looking to do. However, that is a little bit limited in scope, and if you're not using the Monte Carlo, you do have to have a lot of ways to get your melee back so you can utilize Weave Walk as much as possible. So, difficult to build around, but there is absolutely upside. Now, moving on from there, the last aspect we're looking at is for the Hunter, and you get Whirling Maelstrom. Now, this says destroying a tangle will weave a violent writhing mass of strand fibers. The strand mass seeks out and damages targets, emitting unraveling projectiles when it defeats them. So, how this works in game is probably the most simplistic of the 3. Whenever you destroy a tangle, so if you shoot it while it's sitting there or you pick it up and you throw it, as you can see, it will create a little strand tornado that will last a very, like still going. Like, what the heck is with this thing? It lasts forever. So Whirling Maelstrom actually has some pretty decent potential, because if you are ever throwing tangles, it just massively improves the potential of that tangle, right? Like that extra whirling damage is going to be pretty significant. So if you throw your tangle at, a boss or whatever, not to mention again, it's following that boss around, you're going to get a lot of extra damage out of that against a group of enemies. Anyone that would survive that first initial tangle explosion is often going to be destroyed by the tornado, and not to mention it's also unraveling these enemies as well, and that's another strand keyword that you can have synergies with. And so overall, Whirling Maelstrom is one of those things where, yeah, you're not, compared to the Warlock, going into an alternate dimension and spawning Threadlings and you're unkillable and all this crazy stuff. But if you're already planning on throwing a lot of tangles, then you just put this aspect on and it makes what you're doing a lot more powerful, especially because there's a lot of ways to spawn tangles within the game. First of all, a really easy combo is use the Quicksilver Storm exotic auto rifle. This is already a very, very good weapon. With the catalyst, it turns it into Strand and it makes the final blows with the grenades from your alternate fire mode make tangles. So that is a super consistent way to just constantly be spawning tangles. Now you're throwing them, now they're whirlwinding around, like they're just way more potent. It is just a powerful addition to something a lot of people were already doing. And the tangle regeneration rate was actually buffed for this season. It's going to take a few seconds quicker to get your tangles back. And there's also going to be seasonal artifact perks that enhance your tangle capabilities. So it's really not too hard to throw together like a hunter tangle spawning build and then just have the whirlwinds take that to the next level. However, I will say in later level content, I can absolutely see the damage provided by the tornado falling off pretty rapidly. Additionally, when you're doing harder content, you're often not able to go out to where you killed an enemy and pick up the tangle. Like, doing so would put you in the crosshairs of a champion, and it's just not a good idea. So, against large groups of enemies, seasonal activities, lower level content, it actually seems quite good, but again, it may start to fall off in higher level content. With that being said, again, it's so free to put on. Like, you don't really have to change your build around too much or do anything funky because your Strand build just automatically makes a ton of tangles and you're just enhancing those massively. Like for the Titan aspect, yeah, it's super powerful, but you now have to have a melee build for it to really work, right? For this, not really. Your just tangles are buffed through the moon. And so all three of these aspects are honestly pretty darn good. The one I'm absolutely enjoying most of all right now is the Titan one, just because it's very relevant for the seasonal activity. The Warlock one, it could be hit or miss. I feel like that will actually see some play in PvP more than PvE. And then the Hunter one, it could be the sleeper hit. It's nothing crazy, but it's just so free to use. I feel like you could end up having a lot of people utilizing it. And so guys, that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this interesting. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKakis. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.